This year, a group of California residents will receive $550 million. It's not a scam. There are 260,000 recipients. That's enough to fill not one, not two, but 4 football stadiums. And if you average it out, that's about $2,153 per person. Except they are not receiving cash. Instead, their debt will get expunged. In other words, their debt will simply vanish.
Okay, 30 to 40% of American families are living paycheck to paycheck.
A survey from Lending Club found Americans don't have enough money to cover a $400 emergency.
Federal Reserve reports more than a third couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing.
So what happens when you are faced with a $2,000 medical bill?
And 2 out of every 5 Americans have medical debt.
Roughly 10% of LA County adults are dealing with medical debt.
1 in 10 adults in LA County have bills they struggle to pay.
Well, you go into debt.
$500 billion. Dr. Vogt, that's how much medical debt Americans hold. In fact, many families have...
There are charities that buy medical debt and erase it. One of the biggest is
the nonprofit Undo Medical Debt. To make this happen,
Undo Medical Debt, which brings us to one billionaire, Evan Spiegel, CEO of Snapchat, California native, and billionaire. Together with his wife, Miranda Kerr, they helped erase $550 million in medical debt.
$500 million of unpaid medical debt for more than 250,000 Californians.
That's over $500 million. Everyone wins. Patients get relief, a billionaire gives back, everybody celebrates. But then one tiny word completely changed the story. They said, help erase. Helped. Notice, it doesn't say Evan and Miranda paid $550 million. What is the difference, really? So, I went to the charity's website myself. It says right here, $10 relieves approximately $1,000 of medical debt. If $10 erases 1,000, then someone didn't spend 1,000. They spent 10. Because you see, this isn't some loophole that I discovered. 10 years ago, the comedian John Oliver bought $15 million in medical debt for around
less than 60 grand.
$60,000. Let's do the math here. 550 divided by 100, that's $5.5 million. That's probably much closer to what was actually donated. Erasing $550 million in debt would require a donation in the neighborhood of $5.5 million. This actually brings up a much more interesting question than what I had in the beginning. If this debt can be bought for pennies on the dollar, why was the patient ever asked to pay the full amount in the first place?
This is the reality for more than 100 million families caught in a healthcare system that is too often unfair.
So why is a $1,000 medical bill only worth $10? To answer that, we need to follow the bill from the moment it is created. Let's imagine you break your leg. You go to the emergency room, they take x-rays, put your leg in a cast, maybe keep you overnight. A week later, a bill shows up in your mailbox. $10,000. Where did that number come from? The answer is something called the charge master, Think of it as the hospital's sticker price, kind of like the price on a new car. Almost nobody actually pays it. But why a sticker price? Because insurance companies negotiate. If a hospital sends Blue Cross a bill for $10,000, Blue Cross doesn't simply write a check. They negotiate aggressively. They might say, we'll pay $2,500, take it or leave it. The hospital knows this is going to happen, so they inflate the initial bill, knowing it will be negotiated back down. It's not a mistake, that's how the system works. If you're looking at it from a business perspective, it makes sense. But now imagine you don't have insurance, or maybe your insurance doesn't cover this procedure. You don't have a billion-dollar corporation negotiating on your behalf. You get the full charge master bill. The bills pile up, the reminder letters start arriving. Eventually, the account goes to collection. At that point, the hospital has a decision to make. They can spend years trying to collect money that may never come, or they can sell the debt. So they bundle thousands of unpaid medical bills together and sell them on the secondary market. But because most of the debt is unlikely to ever be collected, the buyers aren't willing to pay full price. They're willing to pay pennies on the dollar.
Thanks to our model, we can erase $100 of unpayable medical debt on average with a $1 donation.
That's the same market where charities like Undue Medical Debt step in. Which brings us back to where we started. If a debt buyer can purchase your $1,000 medical bill for around $10, why were you ever expected to pay the full $1,000? Because throughout the entire process, everyone negotiates. The hospital negotiates, the insurance company negotiates, the debt buyer negotiates. The only person who is ever handed the full sticker price is the patient. So let's go back to Evan. Did he help people? Yes, he absolutely did. For the 260,000 Californians who opened that letter and discovered that their medical debt had vanished, I doubt they care whether the donation was $5 million or $500 million.
Thousands of letters will be sent this week reading in part, you no longer have any obligation to pay this debt to anyone. Weighty words lifting the heavy burden of debt for scores of families in an unimaginable Christmas gift.
They open it and say, I'm glad I opened it because I had to read it 3 times because I couldn't believe somebody would be abolishing my debt.
That's a life-changing outcome. But after everything we've learned, I don't think that's the biggest story. The bigger story is the system that made this donation possible. Think about it. The hospital doesn't expect to collect the full charge master price. The insurance company refuses to pay the full charge master price. Debt buyers won't pay the full charge master price. Charities don't pay the full charge master prices. The only person who is ever expected to pay the full sticker price is the patient. And before that debt is ever sold, the hospital has usually already moved on. After months of trying to collect, the debt is then written off as bad debt or uncompensated care. For many nonprofit hospitals, those uncompensated care figures help demonstrate the community benefit that supports their tax-exempt status. By the time a charity like Undue Medical Debt buys that portfolio, the hospital has already extracted value from it. The debt buyer has made its purchase. The charity gets to forgive millions of dollars in face value debt. And the patient is finally free. Which brings us back to that headline. Evan Spiegel and Miranda Kerr help erase $550 million in medical debt. It's technically true. But what picture does that headline paint? Most people imagine someone writing a $500 million check. What actually happened? A donation purchased a heavily discounted portfolio of distressed medical debt, allowing thousands of families to become debt-free overnight. That's still an incredibly generous thing to do, but they're not the same thing. And that's why I complain about stories like this one. Not because people are being helped, they totally should be, but because these stories risk making us celebrate the symptom while ignoring the disease. Medical debt forgiveness changes lives. It rescues families from impossible situations. But it doesn't change the pricing system that created those impossible situations in the first place. If anything, these stories are normalizing it. Instead of asking why a $2,000 medical bill can eventually be purchased for $20, we celebrate the billionaire who bought it. It was a PR stunt with real benefits on both sides. We celebrate the billionaire instead of asking why the hospital wasn't willing to sell that same debt to the patient for the same price. Everyone in this system gets to negotiate. The only person who never gets to negotiate is the patient. Maybe that's the problem we should actually be trying to solve.